Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, as the comeback coach. Guys, as you know, I love my veterans. I love my coaches, my speakers. She does it all, the Swiss Army knife of positiveness. I'm so grateful to have her on. She's a 20-year Air Force veteran. Now she's been out 6 years, changing the game. So guys, welcome Larissa to the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing amazing, Richard, and thanks so much for having me. And hello to everybody out there listening live and on the replay. Hello,
I
hello.
love it. So now, because I do have a traumatic brain injury, if I ask the question, I will forget it. What is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, for me, resiliency is about being able to adapt and overcome and move forward even after challenges, adversities, setbacks, stressors that we've experienced in life. And so for me, it's just about overcoming and moving forward.
I love it. So now we're going to hop back, get in the DeLorean, and then hop back in the Wayback Machine. So tell us a little bit about where you're from, where'd you grow up, and a little bit about your military service.
Sure. So I am from Woodbridge, Virginia. My mom, dad, stepdad were all Army. I interned with the Army while I was still in high school for one summer. And everybody I knew said, you need to join the Air Force. You that is a better fit for you. So I joined right out of high school at 17. And a part of it was really I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. And so at that point, I didn't know that I was going to make it a 20-year career. And so I joined at 17 and I was in Intel. I was a Turkish linguist when I first joined. And so, of course, when I went to the recruiter and making it sound super cool, I'm from Germany. I spoke German, I spoke French. And so in my head, when I got picked up as a linguist, I was gonna like get to use those languages and travel to Europe and speak those languages for the military. And that was not actually what happened. And I ended up learning Turkish. And it was actually really cool for me to be able to like use that language and also learn about what other strengths and gifts and talents I had once I joined the military. We can talk more about that later.
Yep. So I think I'm one of the only shows that spotlight female veterans because I believe that they need more respect. Because I've had a lot of them on. Some of my best friends are female veterans, and we'll go hang out somewhere, and they'll say, "Well, all the veterans stand up," and even the females, and they'll be like, "No, sit down. We didn't say spouses," and they're like, "No, I am a veteran. I've done more time than you." So I think a lot of people, when they think veteran, they think, a guy, but they don't really give as much credence to female veterans. So that's why I do, why I have so many female veterans on my show.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, my husband is also a retiree, and we'd go and, like, oh, is there a military discount? Whatever. And they will always assume that he is the veteran.
So
And he'll be pointed out, be like, nope, she's a veteran too.
Yep. And like I said, that's why his friends, Tammy Moses, she's got an amazing podcast. I'm going to hook you guys up with another young lady, Annette, also another veteran. I'll have you guys hook up on her podcast too. But so I try to spotlight a lot of female veterans because a lot of people don't realize that just being a veteran is hard, but sometimes being a female veteran is hard because there's a lot of assholes out there. So talk to us what it's like growing up, as a young person, getting in the military and also being a female veteran. Tell us something about this.
Yeah, I think for me, as when I was experiencing it, I didn't notice anything different, right? Especially being a Black female in the military working in Intel. When I was experiencing it, I didn't feel different from anyone else. And I had so many opportunities. I look back on my career and it was amazing, all of the things that I got to do. And I think so much of it was part of like my mindset and doing the the work that I do now, having started that at such a young age, but also like the amazing leadership that I had throughout my whole career. And some of the leadership being amazing in that it was me learning what I don't want to be and things that didn't feel aligned for me, but then also people who like really respected me and supported me throughout my military career. So I was really lucky in being able to have that from the time that I joined.
All right, now, because we're going to talk about wellness. We're going to be talking about physical fitness, mental fitness, mindfulness.
Yeah.
Now, I got sober while thrown out for being a drug addict the first time. Got back in, almost got thrown out again. Then straightened my life out. And physical fitness. And for me, while all the guys would go out drinking and partying, I'm sitting there drinking my protein shakes, taking my creatine, reading my Mo fitness magazines. So my whole thing became fitness in the military and wellness. Was that something that something that you picked up along the way?
Yeah. So for me, I was, just basic athlete before joining the military. So I was already into fitness a little bit. But when I joined the military, I told you I joined as a Turkish linguist. I knew that I couldn't go any place else besides Fort Meade. So I was actually there for 20 years. So really soon after joining and getting to my first duty station, I had a year in tech school and then get stationed at Fort Meade. I started working part-time at a gym. And so I became a personal trainer outside of the military even. And so that was a really big part of my life. I started taking yoga and really integrating that into my life on the side as this part-time gig, and then started teaching it for the military really early on in my career. So that was huge for me, and being able to have, the mindset and the foundation that got me to where I am today. But I started that at such a young age.
Okay, so because I'm thinking, because I even in my military, wherever I was stationed, I either worked at the gym or I worked at the GNC for over 30 years. And, I'm friends with, former Miss Olympia, Linda Murray, Mr. Olympias, several Miss Olympias. But it seems like if you get a female that's getting into fitness, a lot of guys they feel weird, and they feel like, oh, if a woman's getting too strong, either emotionally or physically, intimidated. So did you see a lot of that with a lot of those guys? Because now she knows who she is. She has a positive attitude, and then they'll call you a bitch or snuck up or snoot. You ever catch any of that, like go in the military?
Sometimes. And I was teaching for the military on a military facility. So I was at the gym often. And yes, there were times that people maybe thought I was a little snooty or a little bitchy because I was just there to work out, or I would be working out, or I would be teaching. And that was basically what I did with most of my free time. And most of the time it was guys that I was in there working out with and training with. So I had made lots of friends, and it was such a great community though, being in the gym, but I was most often the only female there.
So now you said you did over 20 years in the Air Force. By the way, I'm an old Army grunt. So, but if I ever have anybody ask me now which branch you should join, I'm like, just join the Air Force. I'm like, they have systems. They got it down pat. I'm like, guys, just join the Air Force. I mean, it's such a great community, and it seems like they don't deal with a lot of dirtbags like I was. So everybody just join the Air Force. They're great people, and the chow halls are friggin' amazing.
So I told you I was at Fort Meade my whole career, and I grew up with Army family. I later on in my career, I started special duty, and I started going TDY with the Air Force Wounded Warriors. And that was like my first real experience of being around the Air Force, because I always heard people talk about it, but all I knew was Army, right? And at Fort Meade, it was pretty equal. We had a lot of Marines and sailors and Army and Air Force, all of them working together. So that was all I knew. And so hear all the jokes about Air Force, and then I go to Air Force bases and I'm like, oh, this is what y'all were talking about with
Yeah.
actually being on Air Force bases.
Yeah, one of my best friends, Mr. Robert Garcia, the warrior strategist. He's an Air Force guy, and we always crack on him about drinking White Claws and lobster tail at during drill weekend. But so I want to hop into something. I want to talk about. You did 20 years, and then eventually, a lot of soldiers and airmen. We don't realize that we all have a shelf life. We're all going to retire someday, and a lot of us on duty. I lost my vision, so they medically discharged me out. But a lot of us don't plan on getting out. We plan on what we're going to do a career, and a lot of it's don't pan out that way, and a lot of us struggle with military transitioning. So that's what I want to talk about next. But I want to thank our sponsors before we even keep going. I want to dig deep. They call me the male Oprah or G.I. Joe Rogan. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into your story. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, all my sponsors are veteran-owned companies. My friend David Nordell has a company called MaxFab Consulting. We actually help companies hire veterans, because a lot of people don't realize are the ultimate minority. Only 2% have ever, or 2 to 3% have ever served this country. And we are the best of the best. The companies don't know why they need to hire a veteran and all the breaks that they get for hiring. So if you're a CEO, CFO, or if you're a veteran looking for a job, check out down below MaxFab Consulting, and we'll get you that information. Also, guys, guys know there's so many people getting hacked now. Many companies that are getting hacked every day. If you're worried about getting hacked, my friend Daniel Curry of Indy's IT department, Army veteran, he takes care of all my computers, all my house is taken care of. I don't have to worry about getting hacked at all. So guys, if you're worried about getting hacked and you want somebody that is at one point in his life raise his hand to give his life for this country, imagine what he'll do when you pay him. So definitely, if you guys worried about IT, just write IT down below. But Larissa, let me ask you knew you were going to do your time and you were going to get out. So how far ahead did you start planning?
Yeah, so for me, when I joined, I didn't know that I was going to do 20 years. And even after my first enlistment, I extended for a year because honestly, I was doing work that I didn't 100% love. I was doing the fitness stuff on the side. I was already in that health and wellness world, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I had really great leadership. And I ended up being able to do a lot of additional duties, working in health, running fitness program, being able to teach classes, and decided that I was going to try to make it to 20. Um, what happened for me though was when I was at 16 years, I was actually working at an addition or a detail to be working under our chief. So the E9 for the base that I was his exec. And at that time, they were looking at getting rid of my actual career field, Turkish, as a Turkish linguist, and to retrain me to something else, which would mean at that time I think I already had 2 kids, and my husband was working at the Pentagon, and I didn't want to have to PCS. And then there was an opportunity I worked at the Army Community Service Center as Air Force. And so for me, they're taking that special duty meant that at the end of it, I had to agree to get out. So I knew that I could only go to 20 years then. So it was kind of nice having that definitive end date of, okay, you're going to do this special duty at the end of your career. And then that's the end. And I got to do what I was already doing outside. At that time, I was already working as a life coach. I was also still doing the fitness stuff, teaching yoga and all of these other things on the side. And then I got to do that and a lot more for the Air Force, working at the community service center. And then I knew at 20 years, that was going to be it for me. And so I was already transitioning to say, okay, this is the work that I want to do when I retire. So it was an easier transition for me because mentally I could prepare for it. And I was already doing the work for the military and outside of the military that I really wanted to be doing.
But because my question is, eventually we all have to hang up the uniform. You know, a uniform is going to go into the closet. And a lot of us, for me, once I got the 16th chance and I did everything I could become the ultimate soldier, everything I was Sergeant. Well, now I don't have my vision. I don't have a career, and I'm no longer Sergeant Kaufman, so I didn't know who I was. So that's when I attempted suicide, Memorial Day 2012. So talk to us, because a lot of people get out, that was their identity. And then when you streets, you have to forge another identity. And I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people like that. So please talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And for me, because I already was doing that work, it was easier for me. And I told you I was working with the Wounded Warriors while I was active duty. When I retired, I got to go on with them as a contractor. And I still, just last week, I was out in Texas doing work with them. And so for me, it was, how can I still continue to serve? And even when I'm no longer in my uniform. And that was what I needed to be able to help me with that transition of doing my own inner work, knowing who I was and being able to say, I still want to be a human of service in this world. And there are other ways to do it, and having a community of support around me. And I think that that's so important for anyone who's transitioning out, not to wait until the last minute, because a lot of people just get to that place of relief of like, oh, I can't wait till I retire. And then they feel like they're just gonna, wash their hands of the military and move on without having that structure and the resources in place, because it's much harder for people when you don't proactively have that community of support. And so I was lucky that I had that. I worked at the community service center where we worked with people who were transitioning out of the military. And so I had all of the resources available inside of the service and outside when I retired. So it made it easier for me to transition out. And that's what I recommend for everybody getting to that place. You need a community. Don't feel like, even if you're getting out under, not so great circumstances, you still need a community. And so make sure you have that before you transition out.
Okay. And I totally agree. Now, you're interesting, just like my friend Annette was interesting, because when she got out of the military, her husband was serving.
Yeah.
Not only was she a veteran, now she's a mil spouse. So you see it from both levels. So how is it, being a military spouse and being on the other side of the uniform? What is that like?
Yeah, my husband retired about a year and a half after I did. And so it was in that space of kind of being both. And it was interesting because it was like, I kind of felt like in both worlds of, oh, I know what it's like going to the, Air Force ball or going to do things as his spouse, but also having served in that way. And I didn't really get involved in the spouse stuff and that community much after I retired. For me, it still felt like more at home while being with the service members.
Okay, so now the reason I started, and I told you a little bit earlier, the reason I started this show is because I found that if a veteran or a first responder, because we both run in the same circles, if they get out of the military or they take off the uniform, if they have a mission again, they're so much less likely to take their own lives if they have a mission. And that's why, for me, it's podcasting, it's business. And that's why I try to, get as many people, veterans, to start business, because it gives you a mission again. So if somebody, is listening to us and they don't know what their mission is and they're going to get out or are out now, how do you find a mission again?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you about needing that mission and purpose, even if it's not specifically a job, right? It's not that you're going to get out of the military and just transition over to a civilian version of the job that you were doing. And a lot of it is taking that step back to say, what is it that lights me up? What is it that brings me joy? What are my strengths? What are my gifts? What are the things that other people share about me that has benefited them? And doing that deeper work. And I think that it's so like there's so many workshops and people that you can do it with, because sometimes it's hard to do that type of inner work on their own. Um, in the Air Force, our core values around service before self, integrity, all we do, or integrity, excellence in all we do. And I know that all of the service has have some version of that. And so sometimes it's hard detaching from that of the service before self to be able to say, I matter too, and what I need matters too. And yes, it is important for us to look outside to say what is needed in the world. But often what's happened for military members, it's that they're looking at how can I serve while it is a detriment to themselves or neglecting themselves. And so it's hard sometimes when people are transitioning out for them to even know how to do that inner reflection to say, well, what is it that brings me joy? I've just been doing what I've been told to do. What are my true strengths and gifts? Because I've just been doing what I've been assigned for all of these years or decades. And so it can be really challenging for people to be able to make that mindset shift to say, it's okay for me to choose now. But there's a lot of fear for people when they've been told what to do for so long to really feel safe to choose.
And and a lot of people when they get out of the military, like for me, um, I was a drug addict, alcoholic,
Mhm.
uh, just an asshole. I'm going to be, people know that I'm going to be straight up and honest. Um, but it hasn't been until recent to where, like my friend, as you see, I'm writing stuff down because whatever you say is important. I want to make sure I hit on it. My friend John McCaskill and Will Schneider have a mindfulness podcast that they talk about mindfulness, and a lot of us don't know how to be quiet. Take even if it's just you know 10 minutes in the morning. Like for me, when I get up in the morning, if I open up my eyes, I say, thank you, Lord, today's going to be a great day. But then I'll go into the other room and just sit there for 10 or 15 minutes with no phone on, nothing, and just be quiet and think about my day. And I think it's trying to become mindful even in the quiet times. So talk, because I that's what the headline of the show is. What is mindfulness? So you are the person to answer that question. No pressure, no pressure. But what is mindfulness?
Yeah, so I love that you're already doing it. And I know we chatted previously about your own mindfulness practice. So for me, it is paying attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. And oftentimes it's that we do it as a practice first of a set amount of time that I'm going to intentionally choose to pay attention on purpose, be here in the present moment. But for me, the goal is that we live more mindfully, that we're integrating mindfulness into our day so that we go through every day paying attention on purpose, being present, being curious without judgment and without expectation. And so I recommend, just as you say you do already, is that you're doing it first thing in the morning, right? You're saying your prayer, your gratitude, and then you're intentionally doing that mindfulness practice. And then the goal is that we're then bringing the skills, the tools that we learned from that practice into our day so that we can go through the day more aware, more present, And so it's not to say that somebody who is mindful or practicing mindfulness throughout the day will never make a mistake or will never say anything that they, later regret, but it's that we can be aware of it. And if we do say something that perhaps we've realized isn't the best thing to say to a certain person, we're like, oh, I noticed that. What could I have done differently? I'm accepting and acknowledging that I'm human, learning from my mistakes, moving forward. And so we get out of that cycle of just repeatedly ruminating on stuff that we said or did, and then we've lost the whole rest of the day to our negative self-talk and that spiral that comes out of it. And
You know,
so, yeah,
and
go ahead.
like Grant Cardone talks about, self-awareness is an MFer. I mean, to be self-aware sucks sometimes. Like last night or yesterday, I argued with my wife in front of the kids, and then I thought it over, and I'm like, yeah, I screwed that up. So I apologized to my wife, and I texted my boys, and I'm like, you know what, I'm sorry, I was an asshole yesterday. I apologize. But I think sometimes we just have to start, if you're going to be self-aware, you got to be like, if you screw up, admit it, try to change it. But I think one thing is just admitting that you're wrong is half of, half of the solution is admitting that you're wrong. But you can't admit you're wrong if you're not self-aware. They kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah. And right, because there's a lot of people who your wife could have just told you she's pissed at you, and then you say, "Oh, sorry," without without the self-awareness, and it's just a meaningless apology. But part of it is then, why was I an asshole to my family yesterday? Let me be curious about what was different about this day, right? Was it that I needed more sleep, or that I needed to eat, or that I was stressed out about this thing that happened at work? Like, the curiosity then comes with, let's go deeper into why I reacted in this way so that I don't continue making the same mistakes. So our goal is not to never make mistakes. We will all make mistakes. We are all human and we'll keep making them. But let's not continue making the same mistakes because there's a lack of awareness or a lack of desire to really do anything about it.
And for me, my wife, my bride, I call her my bride. We've been together. She knows me 40 years, but we've been, so, I mean, she's my bride, my best friend. She's my rock. But I mean, and I'm still an asshole. So I mean, so I know I get on her nerves, and sometimes I'll just get up in the morning and be like, "I'm sorry." And she's like, "For what?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm going to do something stupid today." So I'm just apologizing ahead of time just to try to put some money in that bank. But for me, I try to live, because I think you're my like 1,030 interview or something like that. But the most people that are the most successful, they live in gratitude. And for me, like my friend David Meltzer, they wrote the movie Jerry Maguire about him. He talks about gratitude, how gratitude and anger cannot occupy the same space. So I try to live in gratitude. Like, this is a life hack, guys, if you're watching, that I do every night. Before I go to bed at night, I reach over, put my arm around my wife, whether she's sleeping or not, pray for her, pray for happiness or health, that I could be the man she deserves. And then I say 3 things that I'm grateful for that happened during my day. Even if it's, she made a great meal, thank you, Lord, for bringing her in my life. Or whatever happened that day, I pick 3 things. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I could see something, because I lost 80% of my vision 3 years ago, I actually say out loud, Lord, I can see something. It's going to be a great day. I'm grateful. And so I go to bed with gratitude, and I wake up with gratitude. And I think, like my brother James Clear wrote in the book Atomic Habits, you are your habits. So talk to us about your evening rituals and your morning rituals for mindfulness.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, Richard, about the gratitude as well, because for me, gratitude and mindfulness are similar in that I recommend, and I do, practice it as a practice every morning and every night. But then we go through that day with more intention. So just as an example, if I, say something not so nice to someone, instead of that just apology for it, it's, wow, like, thank you for your forgiveness, or thank you for uh, still talking to me after I said this not so nice thing. Like, how can we integrate gratitude more into our day? And so for me, my practice is every morning I focus on my goals, what I'm grateful for. I do some breath work, and I'm really clear about what is my vision, what is my purpose, so that that day I can move forward with intention. And then the same thing at night, where I focus on doing some breath work, but releasing tension in my body, all that kind of stuff, and focus on what I'm grateful for. Because that's how I want to anchor every single day, so that I can go through every day with gratitude, being present to all of the experiences that I'm grateful to experience every day. And some of them, right, like may not look great, but they're I don't think of things as like bad. It's like, okay, cool. I learned from this. This is a great opportunity for me to learn something new. And that just helps me shape my perspective through the whole day, because A, I've been doing it for so many years, decades, and it makes it so much easier through the day to stay regulated, to where we have that flexibility to be able to experience a not so great thing, but then not allow that to take over our whole life, or not allow that to be what we focus on. Like, I still have so much stuff to be grateful for. Even if this little thing happened to me today, it's really a minor inconvenience
You know,
when we're
and I
focused on
love that.
gratitude.
And you're right. I mean, there's 8 billion people on this planet. Why the one person that pissed you off is going to ruin your whole day? You know, you got 8
Yeah,
other billion people that didn't piss you off. So, kind of move
yeah.
on. But, somebody, I interviewed somebody on New Year's Eve last year, and he says, I want you to pick 2 words for your 2023. And I'm like, you know what? That's bullshit. It don't work. So, but I'm like, you know what? For the hell of it, I'll try it. So my 2 words for 2023 is intention and attention. And my
Love it.
life is 10x just in the last 9 months, just by worrying about intention and attention. And the reason why I bring it up is because I lost my vision 3 years ago, but my hearing got better. Not according to my wife, but my hearing got better. And you said the word intention 5 times so far. So talk about living intentionally.
Yeah. I love those words, Richard. And yes, when I'm talking about every morning, what I'm focusing on, that's because I believe what I think you're talking about with the paying attention to our intentions of what we are choosing to invest our time, our resources, our energy into. And so for me, it's about there's going to be all sorts of distractions and shiny objects other all over the place. And my intention is to stay focused on that bigger vision for my future, how I want to show up and serve, the impact that I want to make in the world. And so those other things become less important and less distracting, because it's like, "Oh, okay, that's not on my path. That's not a part of my path right now. I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to focus on that. I am intentional with the things that I'm saying yes to and the things that I'm saying no to, because I know what kind of mom I want to be to my kids, what kind of wife I want to be, what kind of daughter I want to be, what kind of friend I want to be, what kind of business owner I want to be." And so being intentional with all of those things. And again, sometimes I make mistakes, but hopefully I'm not making the same mistakes again and again, because I'm learning and growing and continuing to go back to that bigger vision of why I believe I'm here on this planet.
But don't you believe also that sometimes saying no is better than sometimes saying yes? Like for me, if it's not God, family, friends, and podcasting, I don't have time for it. I'm not making time for it. I will say no. I can't do that. I won't do that, because 6 o'clock at night, my phone goes off because I know 6:30, me and my wife are going to be sitting in a jacuzzi. That's my time with my wife. So I believe that sometimes to up level, you need to unplug. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I 100% agree around the saying yes and saying no. And I think that is such a, you're talking about like life hacks. That's such a hack to be able to say no to the things that are not aligned. And when we can do that without guilt, without then spending an hour stressing about the thing we said no to, we have so much more time and energy for the things that truly matter. And so, as I hear as an example, you saying, your faith, your family, your friends, podcasting, those are the things that matter. And so, when we have that lens of, okay, I know what's important to me. So, when this other stuff happens, I'm not going to get distracted by it because it's not aligned for me. And I can say, no, no, thank you, right? And stay focused. Just like you, I'm really good about my bedtime with saying, I don't drink, I don't go out partying. None of that is important to me. I want to do the work that I'm here on this planet to do. I want to be a good wife, a good mom. I want to fill all of those roles and not worry about all that other stuff. So that means then being clear with what I'm investing my time in, because we don't get that back. So I want to invest my time in the things and the people that matter.
And I love that. Like a lot of people don't realize that money is infinite, time is finite. It's one thing you'll never get back is your time. And I think somebody said, I wish I remember who, that what you appreciate appreciates. Appreciate, what you have. But now also for me, I realize that if I don't, like when I was in the military, we knew whether you got drunk, whether whatever happened, running PT at 5 a.m. You were eating chow at a certain time. You had certain things to do in your schedule. And a lot of us, when we get out of the military, we're like, woo, I can grow my hair. I can get fat, dumb, and happy. And because I don't have a schedule, but then your life passes you by if you don't schedule your life. So talked about living on not a tight schedule, but make sure, like, I'll even during the day, I'll pick an hour where I'm going to go play video game for an hour, but I'm going to schedule it because that's my mental health, because I know I can't pour from an empty cup. But sometimes you have to have a schedule so okay, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And this way it keeps you on track. So talk about, having a schedule and sticking to a good schedule for success.
Yeah, 100%. And I get up early, regard 365 days a year. I don't stay up late on weekends. I don't, even when I travel, I keep that same schedule because I think it is so important that we have that morning routine. And like from, a sleep perspective, when you would try to adjust your sleep too much, it negatively impacts your ability to go to bed when you need to go to bed, so then that you can then wake up the next day. So from a performance level, it's not good for us to just sleep in till we want to wake up. I try to tell my 17-year-old son that, who wants to get up at 10 a.m. He doesn't listen to me yet, but right, from performance level, it does matter. And so having structure and routine is so important for us to be able to do the work that we're here in this world to do, and to be able to perform in the way that we need to perform. So that means a structure with how much sleep we're getting, the food that we're eating, when we're eating, how we're hydrating, how we're moving. And just like you were talking about having an hour on your calendar to play video games, awesome, right? Like make time for those things that we need. It's just about the intentionality of it, going back to that word. Not that you're just mindlessly on video games or social media or whatever other thing we're getting distracted by. And then we're like, oh crap, it's 5 hours later and I never ate and I didn't do this work I needed to do. So now I need to stay up late to get it done. It's like, no, I'm going to intentionally set aside this time because this is important for me. And this is, as you said, important for my mental health. Awesome. We all need to know what are those things that are going to support us in our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health. And it's not a one size fits all. I don't think it's that everybody should wake up at 5 a.m. and, have the same morning routine. But We all need to know what type of morning routine we need so that we can function and perform at our best, so that we can feel our best to do the work that we're here to do.
But don't you believe that also, now I'm looking at it in another lens, you know, you get those people that they said they go to work and they work for 8 hours. They actually do like 3 hours worth of work and then sit on watching TikTok videos with cats or talking at the water cooler. So you can get somebody that may sleep till 10 a.m., but when they hustle and grind for that 8 hours, they're putting in 12 hours worth of work in that 8 hour time because they're being intentional about what they're doing. Because there's a difference between, being busy and being successful. There's total difference.
Yeah.
Right.
I often talk about like the busyness versus the productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not saying don't wake up at 10 a.m., but I am saying don't go to bed stay up till 8 in the morning and then sleep until 10 a.m. or go to bed at 10 p.m. and get up at 10 a.m. because you're just like non-intentionally laying there and then saying, oh, shoot, I didn't have time to do the stuff I needed to do in the morning. We need a plan. Regardless of what that plan is, you need a plan to make sure that you're getting everything done that you need to get done, that you desire in your life. Make sure you have time for it. That like I have family time blocked off on my calendar because I want to make sure that that time is protected. And I still travel. Again, I told you last week I was doing work with the Wounded Warriors. I was gone a week without my family. That's intentional. And then I want to make sure that I also have quality time with my family because there are plenty of people who are around their family all the time, but they're distracted. They're on their phone. They're not present. They're not connecting. They're not having great conversations. They're not hanging out in the jacuzzi like you said you and your wife do, right? Plan it. Have whatever way you need to be structured because we're all different. We all thrive under different conditions, but it's important that we know what those conditions are. Because I totally agree when you're talking about people who have a 9 to 5 job and they're at work 8 hours, like how much are they actually working? How productive are they actually? Are they just checking a box to say, I was here at work for 8 hours?
Yeah,
Like, I want to be productive.
Because I was in health and fitness for over 30 years, and I've worked with several Olympias, and one particular Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates, he was known as the Shadow. He'd be in and out of the gym in 40 minutes because for that 40 minutes, it was balls that it was huffing and puffing. But then you get guys and girls that are taking selfies. They're like, I'm on beast mode, but they're walking on the treadmill, and you're like, really? You're being busy, but you're not being productive. And business, a lot of people, they want to be busy, but they're not being productive. Now, I got a question. Our friend Paul said, for attendees who have made a crazy and stagnant life for themselves, what are some tips either of you can give to help those who are comfortable but know that they need to take their lives to the next level? Thanks. So I believe, and I'm going to let you harp on it, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because I know that there's somebody in my family, I'm not going to mention her name, but she always wants to be the smartest person in the room. Me, on the other hand, I'd rather be in a room with Richard Branson, Ed Milet, Gary Vaynerchuk. I'd rather be the dumbest person in a room because I already know what I know. I don't know what they know. That's what I want to know. So how do you tap to somebody like Paul that says, I want to get comfortable being uncomfortable? What can he do to start getting into that mindset of getting uncomfortable?
Yeah. And you and I both have a fitness background, and I love the way fitness and what we can do in the gym is a metaphor for life, because just like you're talking about with in the gym, if you're doing a, 1 rep max or something, or working really hard, it's going to be really uncomfortable. So we have to train ourselves to know that it's okay to be uncomfortable and to get out of our comfort zone so that we can actually grow and move forward. And so it was really quick when I saw the comment there from Paul, I believe, but from what I think the message was, or the question was, is about really that clarity of, okay, thanks, to be comfortable. What do they need to take their lives to the next level? I think it's clarity on why. Like when we have that why is that driving force, why are we trying to get to the next level? What is it that we want to be different in our lives? So that we can have that at the forefront so that when it is uncomfortable, we know, okay, this is what I'm working towards. This is who I'm working towards supporting. This is why this matters, because there are going to continue to be uncomfortable things that we have to uncover. A lot of times it's the discomfort of just like maybe not knowing. I don't know exactly the next step to take in growing a business, right? Something like that. You have to have a strategist or a business coach or someone saying, these are the next steps because you really just don't know them. But then there's the discomfort of the things that get uncovered within us when we are taking those next steps, right? That's more of the work that I do with people. It's like the mindset shifts, the deeper work of those blocks that are coming up, those deeper fear, those old wounds that come up when we are going to the next level. When people are like, oh, I don't know why I keep saying I want to do something, but I don't follow through. Or they tell themselves something like, oh, I'm always self-sabotaging, right? Those are the things that are also really uncomfortable. It's the external stuff that we're not aware of how to do, and then the internal stuff that comes up for us when we are going to the next level. And we have to be able to navigate the discomfort from both sides.
But sometimes once you start getting into a growth mindset, you start looking for the uncomfortable. You're like, okay, what do I have to do to get to the next level? And like they say, you'll never see an eagle flying with a pigeon because the eagle's always flying so much higher. And I think you have to, because I think it's, they say that if you're hanging around with 5 millionaires, guess who's going to be the sixth? So I think it's the people that you encircle, who's in your circle. They're the ones that is either going to up or they're going to bring you down. So talk to us about upgrading your circle, because since I've been doing my mindset since January 1st, I've outgrown a lot of. I still love them. I care about them, but I ain't got time. I don't have the bandwidth to be. You're complaining. You're talking about Trump. You're talking. I don't have time. I'm trying to book my cruises so I can go to Atlantis with my family for next year. That's what I'm worried. I'm worried about. I'm practicing. I got my beach house that I picked out. I got my boat that I'm picking. I don't have time for you to worry about who said what on Fox News. You know what I mean? So talk to us about sometimes you have to upgrade your circle, and sometimes it's addition by subtraction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that goes back to what I was just talking about with the discomfort of the things that come up within us, because that's a hard thing to do when you are moving forward and other people maybe aren't coming along with you. And that you have to say no. We were talking about earlier, like being okay with saying no. And that means sometimes changing or releasing people who we had maybe stronger, deeper relationships with, because who you are around matters. And a lot of times we feel like we, out of obligation, have to spend time with certain people. And it doesn't need to be a negative thing or that we think badly upon anyone else. It can just be at this time in our life, this is no longer aligned. And my clients love that shift. And so they'll always come back and tell me like, oh, it's so helpful to just say, this isn't aligned. This isn't aligned anymore with where I'm headed, with where I am now. And that it doesn't need to be a negative thing, that it's just, I'm going this way. And I'm focusing on trips with my family and my beach house and all of these other things, because that's what I desire at this point in my life. That's what I'm working towards. And I love you. And right now we don't need to hang out. I'm not going to, still hang out and go have beers after work or the other things that we might have done with people with an earlier version of ourselves.
Yeah, because I hear people, I don't see you at the club or the bar, and I'm like, yeah, I don't see you at the bank. So, but because like I had the authors of Rich Dad Poor Dad come on the show, and we were talking that money is just an object. Money is just currency. That just means it's always moving, but that means it's always available. And for me, I'm a believer in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I believe that Father owns everything. And if I'm a child of God, I get everything because I'm the heir. But I meet people from my old life, they're penny pinching and nickel and diming. And then the people meeting on the show and friending, you know, like my friend for Father's Day, his 10-year-old son said, I want to rent a car. I want to drive down the Pacific Coast Highway. And his father's like, well, what do you want to rent? He's like, a Lamborghini Countach. So he rented a Lambo for the day. So either there's no money out there or there's money out there. It's just the way that you think about money. So talk about that and the imposter syndrome, that being around people that have a negative mindset can actually put you into that negative mindset.
Yeah, so much from what you shared just there, Richard. And I will say, for a lot of my life, I did have that mindset around money. Of I always had enough, but it was a lot of saving and not doing anything for myself with it, because it was always that fear when I was younger of not having enough. And so I love when you were just sharing about it. It's like when we can change our belief around what's possible, what we deserve, right? As humans on this planet, and for you and for people, those of us that believe in God, and yes, this is all available for all of us, that we are all deserving, and there is enough for all of us to go around. And so when we can just shift to this belief of enoughness, that I can give to you and know that I'll still have enough. I can give to organizations and know that I still have enough. And it's okay for me to receive and attract and desire earning more money in my company. It's not a bad thing. And I think for many of us, especially veterans, that's a big mindset shift to being okay with earning money, having money, attracting money, receiving money. Because when we have more, we can give more too.
But see, now my mindset shifted, and I don't know where, but I came to the realization that if somebody asked me to borrow my car to go to the store, okay, I'll let you borrow. Go ahead. But if you ask me to own my car, then we got a different story. But if God owns everything, and if he's just letting us use it while we're here, we use the beach house. I'm not asking to own it. I just want to rent it for a while. And I think when you have that kind of mindset, you really, the world, God will let you borrow these things. You're not going to own it. No, like somebody owned my house here. When I die, somebody else is going to own it. But God is just letting me use it. So let me use the beach house. The brand new car. Let me drive the boat. I don't want to own it. I just want to use it for a while. And I think when you have that unlimited mindset, I think that's when the world actually starts coming to you, because you realize everything is possible. And even it says in the Bible, all things possible to those who believe. Right?
Yeah.
So now talk to us a little bit about, for the last couple minutes, what you got going on now, how we can support you, and how we can support your mission.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I do a lot of work now around either trauma-informed movement, so teaching people how to practice yoga or do functional strength, functional movement work, from an accessible trauma-informed approach for people who maybe have tried going to gyms or tried going to places and their body doesn't move the way that it used to, or there's some sort of change to how their body once was. And so teaching people how to move their bodies in safe and effective ways to help improve their, physical health and well-being. And I also teach mindfulness. We've talked a lot about mindfulness. So I teach people mindfulness and really love working with people who maybe have said in the past, like, I don't know how to quiet my mind, or I can't meditate, or I can't slow down. Like, those are my favorite type of people to work with, which I get to work a lot with in the military. Teaching people that it is possible right? Even people who have had a TBI, who have PTSD, people I've worked with, all sorts of different people to help them learn how to practice mindfulness as a practice and then to integrate it into their life. And then also at events and things, I love being able to support events, teaching mindfulness, teaching about mindset beliefs, mindset shifts to help us perform better, feel better, be better at home, at work, and in life. So those are the different things that I'm working on right now.
So then how to find you or get in touch?
Larisa Harrington on almost all the platforms,
And
or
you got the
strong.
blue check. So that means you are
Yeah,
the real deal.
the real Larisa Harrington, in Strong by Nature Wellness.
Okay, so now
Strong by Nature Wellness.
for the last couple seconds, I want to talk about, because I tell people that I meditate, they're like, wait a minute, you sit there and go, oh, you're sitting there cross-legged, and I'm like, no. I get in the corner of my couch, and I fell asleep a bunch of times. I said, but I try to meditate and just have quiet moments. But sometimes I have to sleep for like 45 minutes, so I'm not perfect. When it's like, well, I don't know if I could sit there and meditate. What is actual meditation?
Well, I would say there are a lot of different variations. And so, yes, there are some variations where you might be sitting cross-legged and chanting Om, and there might be other practice where you are doing a walking meditation, right? And you're being intentional with just walking across your carpet in your living room and noticing the way the fabric feels, touching the bottoms of your feet and noticing the sensations of the air on your skin, right? That might be a type of meditation. And I think that's why it's important for us to recognize are lots of different ways that we can do it. But for me, the meditation difference being mindfulness, where it might be something that we're integrating into our day of just that present moment awareness, where the meditation practice is a set thing that we're doing a specific way. And so that you're setting that intention of, okay, I'm going to sit here and count my breathing for a minute, or I'm going to lay down and do a body awareness meditation practice for a specific amount of time. And so lots of different ways, and those are just a couple different examples, but there's lots of different ways to do it, but it goes back to the intentionality of it. Are we choosing to do this practice for a specific amount of time for a specific purpose? And the purpose might just be curiosity. I'm just going to notice what comes up for me and not get attached to the thoughts that come into my head.
I love it. And I just want to say thank you. I know talking back and forth when you were being on with Wounded Warrior. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hang out.
Thank you so much, Richard. I have just loved being able to chat with you for the last hour, and I look forward to staying connected in the future.
I love it. So guys, I'm also offering something new. Opened up my coaching program. I got 2 slots left out of 5, and that's all I'm gonna take in. So I'm offering a 90-day coaching program from me personally, which you'll have access to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at half price. So if you guys are interested, write coaching down below. But guys, as you know, I'm a Joel Osteen guy. I love Joel. And something he always talks about is today you can decide to be a victor or the victim. So guys, make sure that you choose to be the victor today and not the victim. I love you guys. Larissa, have an amazing week.
Thanks everyone.
All right, guys, remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up, and I will see you on the flip side. Love you guys.